My hands were numb from sterilizing surfaces. 3 hours of polishing chrome fixtures in a bathroom no one ever used. This debt service demanded perfection. 3 years as the ghost in this house and I was still invisible. Mr. Balbuena only saw the gleam on the marble, never the hands that scrubbed away the evidence of his dangerous life. The only thing keeping me here was my father's impossible debt and the hope of a free future. The low, muffled sounds from the ventilation shaft caught my attention. Not the usual system hum, but human voices, deliberately soft. I pressed my ear to the wall near the access panel of Eduardo's private wing. I caught fragments, set it to activate on pressure seal, and a low, vicious laugh. My eyes tracked instantly to the heavy steel panic room door. A faint, almost imperceptible scratch marked the lower hinge, a spot I knew was pristine an hour ago. I checked the hallway. Empty. The scratch was gone with one wipe of my cloth, but the knowledge wasn't. I was a surgical nurse, trained to spot lethal changes in vital signs, and this tiny imperfection was a vital sign of betrayal. It felt wrong, the kind of wrong that lived in your bones, the kind that preceded a flatline. Dawn. The mansion stirred. Eduardo Balbuena descended to his dining room. He was a portrait of lethal composure in his custom suit, imposing, silent, and entirely predictable. He rarely broke his morning routine, which usually meant one private phone call before securing his private assets. Today was different. He was already moving faster than usual. His phone rang. He answered, his voice a low, lethal murmur. The ledger? Yes, I have it. I need it secured immediately, before Varga makes his move. He was talking about the highly sensitive, irreplaceable ledger he'd spent weeks retrieving. He snapped the phone shut, keys and the leather ledger case in hand, and headed straight back to the private wing, moving with sudden, desperate urgency towards the one place he believed was impenetrable. He was 5 steps from the panic room door, hand reaching for the keypad. The pressure seal instruction, the scratch, the lethal urgency. The connection slammed into me. The words ripped from my throat before I could stop them. Don't go inside. The crystal water pitcher shattered on the marble floor as I sprinted after him. The guards materialized instantly. Eduardo froze, his eyes cold, silver, and finally focused on me. His voice was deadly quiet. What did you say? Don't go inside. My breath came in ragged gasps. Pamela Santos. I work here. I saw a scratch. I overheard them. It's the panic room. It's a trap. His hand dropped from the keypad, but his eyes never left mine. He saw the genuine, raw fear, not the maid. Raymond Varga, he breathed, recognizing the method. Dante, he commanded his head of security. Full sweep. Disassemble the panic room door mechanism immediately. He gestured toward a wall, keeping me in his line of sight. Sit. If you're wrong, you just risk more than your job, Pamela. I sank down, shaking, knowing my entire future now depended on a single, almost invisible scratch.
Dante's team worked with clinical precision, tools gleaming under the hallway lights as they dismantled the panic room door panel by panel. Eduardo stood motionless, arms crossed, watching me with an intensity that burned. 3 years of invisibility shattered in 3 words. Now his full attention was a weight I couldn't escape. Lower hinge assembly, Dante called out. His gloved hands extracted something small, wire-thin connections spreading like veins. Boss, proximity-triggered pressure plate, military grade, would have detonated the second the door sealed and weight distribution shifted. The silence that followed was suffocating. Eduardo's jaw clenched, the only crack in his stone composure. His silver eyes cut back to me. "How did you know?" My throat was dry. I heard voices through the ventilation shaft. Someone said, "Activate on pressure seal." Then I saw the scratch on the hinge. It wasn't there an hour before. I forced myself to meet his days. I used to be a surgical nurse before I came here. You learn to notice changes, the kind that kill people if you miss them. Used to be? The question was surgical, precise. My father borrowed money he couldn't repay. $200,000 from your organization. I've been working off his debt for 3 years, cleaning, staying invisible. That was the arrangement. The bitterness leaked through despite my best efforts. Eduardo moved closer, each step deliberate. "Your father's debt," Eduardo said without preamble. "It's cleared, effective immediately. Consider it payment for my life." The glass nearly slipped from my trembling fingers. "What?" 200,000 is nothing compared to what you just saved. That ledger contains information that would have destroyed half my operations if Vargas had gotten it. You're free, Pamela Santos. He paused, something darker crossing his features. But freedom has a cost you didn't ask for. What cost? Visibility. Vargas will know someone in this house recognized his trap. When he discovers it was a maid with medical training who saved my life, you become the most valuable target in this city. His smile held no warmth. Congratulations. You just painted a target on your back. 3 years of invisibility, destroyed by instinct and a scream.
They moved me to a guest suite within the hour. Silk sheets, marble bathroom, armed guards outside the door. Eduardo called it protection. I called it a gilded cage. We were both right. The first day blurred into briefings and protocols. Dante explained the rules: don't leave without escort, don't answer unknown calls, and trust only Eduardo's inner circle. The irony cut deep. I'd spent 3 years earning invisibility. Now my survival depended on being seen by exactly the right people. If you can't stand people who use others as pawns in their power games, hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments. Type, "Nobody deserves that." Because what happened next only got worse. Eduardo visited that evening. He looked exhausted in a way that lived behind the eyes. He said, "Vargas sent a message. He knows you're here. He's calling you my new weakness." He sat across from me, suddenly human instead of untouchable. "He's not entirely wrong." I said, "I never asked for this." He said, "No. You asked to pay a debt and disappear, but you screamed instead of staying silent. That changed everything." He leaned forward. "I'm having you trained. Self-defense, weapons handling, situational awareness. If you're surviving in my world, you need to protect yourself." I said, "I don't want your world. I want my life back." He said, "Your life back?" His laugh was bitter. "Pamela, your life ended when your father signed that loan. Everything since has been borrowed time. At least now you're borrowing from someone who owes you." The truth stung, because he wasn't wrong. My father had sold my future for his cowardice. I'd spent 3 years paying for his mistakes. And now, ironically, my debt was clear, but my sentence had just begun. Eduardo continued, "There's a meeting tomorrow night. High-level negotiations with my associates. Varga won't attend, but his influence will be there. I need you present." I said, "Why would you bring a maid to a mafia meeting?" He said, "You're not a maid anymore. You're the woman who exposed Varga's assassination attempt and saved my life. Your presence sends a message. I trust you more than anyone in that room, and that makes them very careful about crossing me." His eyes held mine. He said, "You'll be safe. I promise." I didn't believe him, but I nodded anyway, because what choice did I have? The meeting room was all dark wood and darker intentions. 8 men sat around the massive table, each radiating the kind of power built on violence and fear. I sat beside Eduardo in a borrowed dress, feeling like an imposter among predators. Every eye assessed me, calculated my worth, wondered what leverage I represented. "Gentlemen," Eduardo began, "the Vargas situation requires discussion." The conversation flowed like poisoned honey. Territorial disputes, shipment routes, the delicate balance keeping the city from gang warfare. I understood maybe a third of the words, but I understood the tension perfectly. These men were allies only because they feared Eduardo more than they hated each other. Midway through, a server brought drinks, crystal glasses on silver, each filled with amber whiskey. Everyone took one. Eduardo lifted his toward his lips, and I saw it. The tremor, almost invisible, the slight lag in his movement, the way his pupils were constricted wrong in the light. Medical training is pattern recognition, and his patterns were off. "Don't drink that." The words escaped before thought caught up. Every head turned. Eduardo froze, glass halfway to his mouth. "Excuse me?" I stood, instinct overriding fear. "Your hand is trembling. Your pupils are reacting wrong. Early neurotoxin signs." I grabbed the glass, sniffed it. Nothing. But some poisons were odorless. "When did you last eat?" "This morning." "Why?" His words slurred slightly. There. Confirmation. "Everyone out, now!" My voice carried the command I'd used in emergency rooms, the tone that made people move without question. Surprisingly, even killers recognized medical authority when death entered the room. The door closed. Eduardo swayed. I caught him, guided him down. "Dante!" I screamed. "Activated charcoal, atropine if available, and get a doctor you trust. Tell them suspected organophosphate poisoning. Move!" Eduardo's eyes found mine, fear breaking through for the first time. "Varga?" Probably. The poison was in something earlier. The alcohol would have accelerated absorption, made it look like you choked. My hands moved automatically. Pulse, breathing, skin color. "You're going to be fine. I won't let you die. Not after I just got free." His laugh came out as a wheeze. Ironic timing. I shut up and breathe. "That's an order." Dante burst in with supplies. I worked with the efficiency of suppressed training, flooding back like muscle memory. Activated charcoal to bind the toxin. IV fluids to flush his system. Monitoring vitals with hawk-like intensity. 3 hours later, Eduardo was stable, pale but conscious. The doctor confirmed my diagnosis: sophisticated neurotoxin, probably in his morning coffee. Another hour and he'd have been dead. "You saved my life again," his voice was hoarse. "I consider us even." "Even?" He sat up slowly, wincing. "You just proved you're worth more than everyone at that table combined. Varga tried twice in 3 days. You stopped him both times. We're nowhere close to even. If you believe loyalty is earned through actions, not fear, hit that subscribe button. People like Raymond Varga won't, and you need to hear what I demanded from Eduardo next." I met his eyes, feeling something shift between us. Then listen, really listen. You live where people try killing you twice in 3 days, where trust is weaponized and everyone's expendable. That's not strength, Eduardo. That's prison. If you want me to stay, to keep saving your life, you need to face why you built that prison. His expression hardened. You don't know anything about my life. I know you built a panic room after betrayal. I know you trust no one. I know you're so isolated that a maid noticed things your security missed. I leaned closer. I know whatever happened scarred you so badly you'd rather die alone than risk vulnerability again. The silence stretched taut and dangerous. Then, quietly, I had a twin brother, Marco. My partner, my confidant, the only person I trusted completely. Varga killed him, poisoned him at a peace negotiation, just like tonight. Marco died in my arms, choking on his own blood, because I trusted the wrong person serving drinks. The panic room, the isolation, the perfect, lethal control. It all made terrible, tragic sense. "I'm sorry," I said softly. "Don't be. Just understand the world you're asking me to face murdered my brother. Some prisons exist for reasons, and some prisons become tombs. You're still alive, Eduardo. Don't waste that." He looked at me then, really looked at me, and something vulnerable flickered across his face before the walls rebuilt themselves. "Varga wants a meeting, face to face. He specifically requested your presence." Ice flooded my veins. It's a trap, obviously, but refusing shows weakness. After 2 failed attempts, he needs to reassess strategy. Eduardo's smile was sharp. He wants to understand what threat you pose. I'm bringing you so he understands exactly what kind. The kind that keeps me alive. The kind that's not going anywhere.
The days before the meeting were strange, suspended between normalcy and nightmare. Eduardo's security trained me in self-defense, weapons handling, threat assessment. But the real education happened in quiet moments when Eduardo would appear in my suite, restless and unable to sleep. "Tell me about Marco," I said one night, finding him staring out my window at 3 in the morning. He was silent, so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, we were identical. People couldn't tell us apart. But Marco was better than me, kinder, more willing to see good in people. I was the suspicious one, the one who saw threats everywhere. His voice cracked slightly. The one time I wasn't suspicious enough, it killed him. "How old were you?" 26. We'd just taken over operations from our father. Marco wanted to make peace with Varga's family, end a 3-generation feud. He thought we could build something better. Eduardo's reflection in the glass looked haunted. Vargas's father agreed to a meeting, neutral location, minimal security. Marco insisted on good faith. I went along because I trusted my brother's judgment. And Vargas's father poisoned him. No, Varga did. His own father didn't know. Raymond wanted war, wanted power, and Marco was the obstacle. So he put poison in the wine, let Marco die, then killed his own father and blamed us for both deaths. Eduardo turned from the window, his eyes hollow.
By the time I understood what happened, Varga had consolidated power and turned half the city against us. I spent 5 years rebuilding everything my brother's murder destroyed. I understood then. The panic room wasn't just security, it was a shrine, a monument to the brother he couldn't save and the trust that killed him. The panic room was supposed to be Marco's office. He wanted a space where he could work without interruption, where he felt completely safe. I had it built to his specifications. He died before it was finished. His smile was bitter. So I turned it into what it should have been all along, a fortress, a place where trust couldn't betray me because I'd never needed there. But you almost died there anyway, because isolation isn't the same as safety. I know that now. You taught me that when you screamed. You had no reason to warn me. Your debt was paid in silence and invisibility, but you screamed anyway. Why? Because watching someone die when you can prevent it isn't freedom, it's cowardice. And I've spent 3 years watching my father's cowardice define my life. I refuse to let it define my character, too. Eduardo stepped closer. Varga will try to break you at this meeting. He'll use your father, your debt, your past. He'll call you worthless, disposable, weak. And he'll do it to make me doubt you, to make me second-guess keeping you close. And will it work? No, because you're the first person since Marco who I've trusted with the truth, and that makes you the most dangerous weapon I have. His smile turned predatory. Let's show Raymond what real danger looks like.
The meeting was held in a private dining room at an upscale restaurant, public enough to discourage violence, private enough for dangerous truths. Raymond Varga was handsome in a predatory way, all charm and calculated menace. His eyes found me immediately. The famous Maid, Pamela Santos, the woman who cost me an expensive bomb and a promising poisoning. His smile was poison itself. Eduardo, you've always found useful people. Though recruiting from housekeeping is a new low even for you. She's proven more competent than your entire operation. Eduardo's tone was casual, but his posture was combat-ready. Competent? Varga laughed. She's a debtor, a nurse who couldn't maintain her license, a woman whose father gambled away her future. His eyes bore into me. Tell me, Pamela, what does Eduardo pay for your loyalty? Or does the threat of death keep you obedient? The words were designed to cut, to establish dominance through humiliation. 3 years ago they might have worked, but I'd saved Eduardo's life twice. I'd seen him vulnerable. I'd challenged him to face his trauma. I said calmly, he cleared my debt. I stay because I choose to. That's something you wouldn't understand, Raymond. You're so used to buying loyalty through fear that you can't recognize freely given trust. His expression darkened dangerously. Eduardo leaned back, subtle amusement playing at his lips. This is what you're betting on, Eduardo? A nurse playing dangerous? Varga's voice sharpened. She's worthless, a disposable asset who got lucky twice. The moment she stops being useful, she'll disappear like everyone else in your world, just like your brother disappeared. Eduardo stood. The entire room went silent. Temperature dropped 10 degrees. You're wrong about everything, Raymond. She's not an asset, not disposable, not lucky. His voice was cold steel. Pamela Santos is my shield. She's my conscience, and she's my future. Unlike you, I don't betray the people who keep me alive. Unlike you, I learned from Marco's death instead of profiting from it. The declaration hung like a thrown gauntlet. Varga's face went rigid with rage. "You're making a fatal mistake. No, I'm making a statement. You tried killing me twice. She stopped you twice. That's not luck. That's skill, instinct, and loyalty you'll never command because you murder anyone who gets close to earning it." Eduardo's smile was lethal. "This meeting is over. The next time we meet, one of us dies, and Pamela will make sure it's not me." We walked out together, leaving Varga seething in impotent fury. Comment, "Loyalty over fear" if you're Team Pamela. The betrayal can't win. Now watch what happens when she proves her strategic value.
"I need you to do something dangerous," Eduardo said 2 days after the confrontation. We were in his office, Dante standing guard at the door. "Varga has evidence, documents, recordings, that prove he murdered his own father and framed me for it. It's hidden in his estate, in a private study only he accesses. And you want me to retrieve it?" It wasn't a question. "Yes, because you have something my operatives don't. You know how to be invisible. 3 years of moving through this house without being noticed taught you surveillance, observation, the art of not being seen. Varga's security is looking for threats. They won't notice a ghost." It was insane, suicidal, exactly the kind of mission that should terrify me. But I'd spent 3 years being invisible out of necessity. Maybe it was time to be invisible by choice. "How do I get in?" Dante explained the plan. Varga's estate was hosting a charity gala in 3 days. High society, minimal security inside the public areas. While everyone focused on the party, I'd slip away, access the private wing using stolen credentials, locate the study, and retrieve the evidence. Simple. Except for the dozen ways it could go catastrophically wrong. The night of the gala, I wore a designer dress that cost more than my entire year's salary as a maid. Eduardo's contacts had created a false identity, a wealthy donor's assistant, completely unremarkable, perfectly forgettable. I entered with a group, smiled at the right people, and the moment attention shifted, I disappeared. The private wing was exactly where intelligence said. The stolen keycard worked. I moved through hallways with the same efficiency I'd used cleaning Eduardo's mansion. Purposeful, invisible, belonging to the space through sheer confidence. The study was locked. Old-fashioned tumbler, something I could pick with the tools Dante had provided. 3 minutes. The lock clicked. I slipped inside. The documents were in a concealed safe behind a painting. Predictable. The combination was harder, but Eduardo's intelligence was solid. The safe opened. Inside, ledgers, recordings, photographs. Everything needed to prove Varga's patricide and betrayal. I photographed everything with the concealed camera, then heard footsteps in the hallway.
My heart hammered. No time to leave. I closed the safe, straightened the painting, and slid behind the heavy curtains just as the door opened. "Telling you, Eduardo's making mistakes," Varga's voice. "That nurse of his is a weakness. She'll get him killed." Another voice, unfamiliar. "Then use her, kidnap her, leverage her, force his hand." I tried killing him directly, twice. She stopped me both times, which means she's either incredibly lucky or incredibly dangerous. Either way, she's needed to be eliminated first. They discussed logistics,
timelines, methods. I memorized every word, every detail, barely breathing behind the thick fabric. Finally, they left. I waited 5 minutes, then slipped out, retracing my path through the mansion. The gala was still going strong. I rejoined my group, made polite conversation, and left with the evidence and intelligence that would end Raymond Varga. Eduardo was waiting when I returned. I handed him the camera. Everything you need is there. Plus, I overheard Varga planning my assassination. He's targeting me next week. He looked at me with something between admiration and fear. You could have been killed, but I wasn't, because I'm very good at being invisible when I need to be, and very good at seeing what others miss. I smiled. That's why you need me, Eduardo. Not as a shield or a weapon, as a partner who sees the threats you can't see.
The evidence destroyed Varga's support network within 48 hours. Eduardo released the proof of patricide to key families, undermining Varga's alliances and turning his empire against him. But Varga was desperate now, which made him more dangerous than ever. "He'll come for us directly," Eduardo said, reviewing security protocols for the 4th time. No more subtle assassination attempts. He'll want a confrontation. Let him come. I was surprisingly calm. We're ready. Eduardo looked at me, really looked, and something shifted in his expression. Why are you still here, Pamela? Your debt is clear. You could leave, start over somewhere safe. Instead, you infiltrated Varga's estate, risked everything, and now you're preparing for war. Why? I considered the question. The real answer beneath the surface reasons. Because 3 years ago, my father's cowardice stole my future. I spent 3 years being invisible, powerless, working off someone else's mistakes. Then I screamed, and everything changed. For the first time in years, I chose something. I chose to save you. And that choice gave me back something I thought I'd lost forever. What? Agency, power, the ability to shape my own life instead of just surviving someone else's consequences. I met his eyes. You asked why I stay. I stay because for the first time since nursing school, I feel like myself again. Skilled, valuable, necessary. Not because of debt or obligation, but because I choose to be. That's worth fighting for. Eduardo crossed to his desk, opened a drawer, and removed a small key. This opens a private ledger. It contains every detail of my operations, my assets, my vulnerabilities. If something happens to me, this information becomes critical for whoever leads next. He placed the key in my palm. I'm giving this to you. Not to Dante, not to my advisors, to you. Because you have something they don't. Conscience. You'll use this information to build something better, not just perpetuate the violence. The weight of the key was nothing. The weight of the trust was everything. Eduardo, I trust you, Pamela. Completely. The way I haven't trusted anyone since Marco died. If that's foolish, if that gets me killed, then at least I died believing in something other than isolation and fear. His smile was soft, vulnerable. You taught me that prisons become tombs. I'm choosing to walk out of mine with you. I closed my hand around the key. Then let's finish this together.
Varga's final move came at dawn. He didn't send assassins or bombs. He came himself with 6 armed men to Eduardo's mansion gates. A challenge, a last stand. Eduardo and I watched from his office as security monitors tracked their approach. He's desperate, I said. Desperate men make mistakes, or they become unpredictably dangerous. Either way, this ends today. Eduardo checked his weapon, then looked at me. Stay here. Let me— No. My voice was firm. We're partners. That means we face this together. We met Varga in the main courtyard, Dante and security flanking us. The morning sun cast long shadows across the stones. Varga looked haggard, cornered, the charm completely stripped away. Eduardo, Pamela, how lovely to see you both. His smile was fractured glass. I came to make a final offer. Walk away. Leave the city. I'll let you live. You have no leverage for offers, Eduardo replied calmly. Your allies abandoned you. Your empire is collapsing. The evidence of your crimes is with every major family in the city. You're finished, Raymond. Then I have nothing to lose. His eyes fixed on me. Which means I can finally kill the woman who destroyed everything. Starting with you, nurse. He raised his weapon. Everything slowed. Eduardo moved to shield me. I pulled the small pistol Dante had insisted I carry. 3 years of being invisible had taught me how to move without telegraphing intent. I fired first. The shot took Varga in the shoulder, spinning him. His weapon clattered across the stones. His men froze, outgunned by Eduardo's security, watching their leader fall. You want to know why I'm still here? I said, walking forward, weapon steady. Because I'm done being the victim of other people's violence. I'm done paying for other people's mistakes. I choose who I am now, and I choose to be the woman who ended you. Dante's team moved in, securing Varga and his men. It was over. Years of violence, betrayal, and bloodshed ended by a nurse who refused to stay invisible. Eduardo pulled me close, his heart hammering against mine. Remind me never to underestimate you.
Too late for that, I smiled against his chest. You gave me a key to your empire. Pretty sure that's the opposite of underestimating. 1 week later, Eduardo called a meeting of his inner circle. The men who'd assessed me in that first meeting, who'd watched me save Eduardo's life, who'd seen me destroy Varga, now looked at me with respect instead of calculation. Gentlemen, Eduardo began, I'm introducing a new position in our organization, confidante. This person has full access to all operations, full authority to make decisions in my absence, and full protection of this organization. This person's word carries the same weight as mine. He turned to me. Pamela Santos is my confidante. She's proven her skill, her loyalty, and her conscience. She sees threats I miss. She asks questions I need to hear. She challenges my decisions when they're wrong, and that makes her the most valuable person in this room. The men nodded, accepting the declaration, because they'd seen the evidence. They knew I'd earned this position through action, not favoritism. Later, alone in Eduardo's office, I held the key he'd given me. Confidant. That's quite a title. It's the truth. You're not my employee, not my asset. You're my partner, my equal, the person whose judgment I trust above my own. He smiled. Marco wanted to build something better. Maybe we can finally do that, together. I thought of my father's debt, the 3 years of invisibility, the scream that changed everything, from ghost to partner, from victim to power. From debt to freedom. Together, I agreed. But on one condition. What? We build something where people don't have to sell their daughters to pay their debts, where loyalty isn't bought through fear, where trust doesn't get you killed. I met his eyes. We build something Marco would have been proud of. Eduardo's smile was genuine for the first time since I'd known him. Deal, my confidant. I'd entered Eduardo Balbuena's mansion as a ghost, invisible and powerless. I was leaving as his confidant, his partner, his equal. The woman who saved his life, destroyed his enemy, and gave him back the ability to trust. Some prisons are cages, others are protection. The trick is knowing when to walk out and who to walk out with. I'd found my answer, and it started with a scream. Don't go inside.